Hello everyone, I am the Lore Explorer, and this is Outer Wilds. In today's loop, we will be spoiling Echoes of the Eye right off the bat, so it's time to click off if you haven't played that yet. Thanks to the amazing modder Zen, we have another cool opportunity for us to take a good look at things that were previously shrouded in darkness. They've made a mod to make the stranger visible in the solar system, and this allows me to find out a lot about the stranger and how it acts. And it lets us get some cool views the Alks may have seen while constructing the stranger. But before we start, be sure to give some love to the modder Zen. They have their own YouTube channel where they cover their modding work of Outer Wilds. So if that's something you're interested in, consider going and checking out Zen's channel and subscribing there. You'll find a link to their channel in the description below. But as always, let's get into it. Now I have to be honest, this was way cooler than I ever thought it would be, and I thought it'd be cool to begin with. Right out of the gate, we were even able to get a better overall view of the bright side of the stranger. And I think I mentioned this before, but I have to imagine the Alks were able to see the stranger like this, or had some way of making it visible to them, but that's just my headcanon, so don't take that as fact. Either way, it's nice to see like this. The green panels opening seem sort of dull and dark, so I just added a quick shot of those. But I have to say, I have to wonder about these array of lights on the back side of the stranger. Maybe it's the thing that's cloaking it in some way. I feel like they have to be important for some reason, but it's hard to imagine what they do aside from lighting up the dark side of the stranger a bit. The way it's all set up, the side with the green panels is actually always facing the sun. So the side with all the lights would always be in the dark as it's facing away from the sun and would need lit. So maybe it's as simple as that. I was also able to use the free cam mod in conjunction with the visible stranger mod. So a quick shout out to the modder Nebula as well, who made the free cam mod. And using that mod in the map mode lets me get good eyes on the stranger and its position in the solar system. I like this shot a lot because it sort of makes the stranger look a lot more like a device or ship rather than the flat plate that we always sort of run into. Also, from this perspective, you can only see the ring housing of the panels are rotating, when we all know the centerpiece is rotating, really. I mean, relatively, they're both rotating, but come on, you get it. So it's a neat perspective to me to see it like this. But back to the map mode, makes it clear where the stranger is. It sits exactly above Timber Hearth's orbit line, getting as close as 8 kilometers away from us. Now, I thought it was more above Brittle Hollow, but apparently, nope, right above Timber Hearth's orbit line. But imagine having a giant spaceship sitting maybe about 800 miles or so above the Earth, and not a single soul on the planet in the history of humankind had an idea for their whole existence that there was a spaceship just sitting there. I think it's cool to imagine a parallel universe in which the stranger was actually visible, and our orbit would give the illusion of the stranger rising and setting above the northern skyline of Timber Hearth for everyone to see. But we all know, usually measuring things comes, in relationship to the sun. It seems the stranger sits about 11 kilometers away from the sun, and believe it or not, for the first 7 minutes of the loop, the stranger remains stationary in the solar system, and I can't really stress enough how odd that is. The white hole station may give everyone the impression that this is a normal thing, but that just doesn't exist in the reality that we know as humans. Things are either in orbit around a body or being pulled into something on some sort of curve. If we park our ship right inside the ring on the stranger, the sun will quickly start tugging us and pulling us back toward it. So for at least 280,000 years, the stranger has somehow been combating the gravity of the sun and maintaining a perfect equilibrium. But after the stranger recognizes that the sun it's stationed around is beginning to die, the panels on the stranger open. This is either directly the means of thrust for the stranger, such as solar sails or an ion emitter engine or something like that, or it's an activator for the more conventional engines on the stranger. Because as soon as these panels open, the stranger slowly begins drifting exactly away from the sun, up and away. The stranger is moving so slowly, it needs about 10 or so minutes to get far enough away from the sun to survive. As we see it, it's moving about 0.2 meters per second at it. So every 5 seconds, for example, it'd go from 5 meters per second to 6 meters per second away from the sun. And this is pretty consistent with the very large nature of the Stranger. It'd take them a really long time to travel large distances. I mean, this eventually does add up, and they do get going pretty fast, but halfway to their destination, they have to turn around and slow down, so it wouldn't be hitting those high speeds for too long. The Stranger may even keep its speeds low on purpose so the structure of the Stranger can withstand it, and so the artificial gravity on the inside doesn't get affected by the thrust, pushing everything towards the screen. But it's definitely an efficient way to travel for those of you, thinking it's not because it's so slow. Because first, they got here safely, and it's a giant planet, basically. And second, it was able to make it safely away about 100 kilometers from the sun before it went supernova. And as we all know, this was automatically done by the spaceship as there was no one around to actively control it anymore, which is pretty impressive to me, even though it was definitely pre-programmed in to do so. And like I said at the beginning, while all of this is super cool and interesting to me, and I'm glad I was able to learn it in an easy fashion thanks to the Visible Stranger mod, but this isn't the coolest part in my opinion. After all of this, I just had one more thing to test, and that was heading into the simulation to see if it's still visible there. And sure enough, as soon as I loaded into the dream world, there it was, sitting right next to the gas giant the Alk's home moon orbited. It may seem silly, and I'm sure it wasn't built that close to the gas giant, but being able to see the Stranger from the simulated surface of the moon, right next to the gas giant that inhabited their sky, with an Alk walking by in the background, is such a cool look into an historic moment of the Alks. And I mean, I know this isn't really what it would have looked like because by the time it was in this state, the planet would be barren and stripped of all of its resources. But still, this is just a really cool sight to see the Stranger next to the gas giant like they would have had it. And as I mentioned, perspective is probably not right, as it's so close, it looks probably equal relative size-wise, not quite, but close, but I don't think the Stranger is actually quite that big. As it sits, the main center part seems to be around 700 meters in diameter, while the gas giant in our system is about 1.5 kilometers in diameter, more than double the size. So I'm guessing the gas giant is a lot bigger, but it looks super cool parked just below the ring of the planet, in my opinion. Plus, again, in this one shot, it looks a lot like a device, which we sort of know it is with the cloaking device, and I mean, it's a spaceship and all of that. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this. Seeing the Stranger from a different perspective, actually being able to see it in the map mode, being able to measure it and doing all of this cool stuff, that's awesome to me. But I think that's just about all I have for you all today. I'm sure later I'll actually do a deep dive like I have with all of the other planets like the Stranger Explored, but this mod was brought to my attention and I just wanted to shine some light on it, highlight it, as well as bring you all along my study of the Stranger and its position in the solar system. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you learned something or if you just thought the sights were cool, consider subscribing to the channel. I have over 200 videos focusing on Outer Wilds, and that's just not going to stop anytime soon. It's going to keep going. So if you want dedicated lore delivered to your digital door, just click subscribe below. And remember to check out the description for a link to Zen's channel if you're interested in that as well. And thanks again, Zen. I really appreciate you bringing this to my attention. It was awesome. And as usual, a huge thank you to the members here on the channel. We're up to 29 members, and I can't thank you all enough for the support that you all show me. And as always, this is a lore explorer diving deep into the game so you don't have to. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.